Back in the early 1980s, Major League Baseball saw the emergence of a ton of great young stars. In hindsight, this feels like a golden age of baseball.
Bouncer, second baseman, over to the shortstop Ripken, back to first, double play.
You would think that baseball card companies would have a field day making sets for these young players.
There goes Reigns, the pad, he's in there with a stolen base.
But things don't always turn out the way that they should.
The count is 1 ball and 2 strikes as Steve Trout delivers and he shoots it to the right side, bounces off for Shorrock. Second baseman Bernazard throws it behind.
Alright, I need to address this right here at the beginning. A lot of you guys pushed back on my last video when I said that 1981 was part of the so-called junk wax era. A lot of you said, oh, junk wax doesn't start until like 1986 or 1987 or 1988 or something like that. Now, the truth that I know a lot of you know is that there are mountains of unopened 1981 Donruss and Fleer boxes still out there. The demand for that stuff is not really that high. But it is 100% clear that 1982 absolutely is the junk wax era. I have proof of this. You're going to see this in a second. The reason why we know this is because the junkiest set of the history of baseball cards came out in 1982. And no, there weren't any Rickey Henderson or Tim Raines or Cal Ripken Jr. cards in this set. In 1982, Topps teamed up with that old big box store Kmart to make a special set of baseball cards. The idea was that collectors could get an entire set of 44 cards with bubblegum in a single box as a one-time purchase. They called this a limited edition set, but don't be fooled by that. Actually, this was probably the least limited edition set in the whole history of baseball cards, and the whole concept behind this set right from the beginning was just absolutely awful. The first Kmart opened in California in late 1962, and the store apparently had a sale on underwear to celebrate the opening. Before the end of that month, there were announcements about Kmart locations opening up throughout the Midwest. And the first mega-sized Kmart opened up in Michigan on March 1st, 1962, this time apparently specializing in shoes and socks. So Kmart actually beat Walmart to the punch by like 6 months. It was one of those stores that thrust the United States away from the older mom and pop stores to the era of the so-called big box stores. It's kind of interesting actually today because we're seeing the big box stores facing huge competition from the internet. The big box stores have been on a decline for months. In fact, we went to Target the other day and it's like a ghost town. Anyway, apparently Kmart thought that the best way to celebrate the 20th anniversary was with a special set of cards made by Topps. Even though the box looked bad, I guess the idea wasn't that awful. Baseball cards were hot back then after all, and it wasn't crazy to think that people would pay $2 for a pack of 44 of them with gum. The first problem though is that these cards were literally pictures of older cards. I'm not joking. Instead of giving you an actual replica of a 1962 Topps Mickey Mantle, they gave you a card with a thick border and a picture of the card at a strange angle. The backs featured much less information than the original cards, and everything had that frustrating slant too. I mean, it's almost like you're getting a knockoff baseball card set. It's like the people at Topps decided to give people a baseball card set that was designed to make them think about another baseball card set. There was really no effort put in this like at all. And it's only worse when you compare these to the original Topps cards that these were theoretically based on. The 1962 Topps set had a really attractive design, and Mantle's card looks kind of epic. That Kmart card, in contrast, looks faded, almost like they took a flash photo of the original. The back of the original Mantle card featured a cool drawing and some basic statistics. The back of the Kmart version featured less information, no real statistics, and it was printed crooked. And so if you think about this, we've already got 2 major strikes against this set, right? The first one is that you had to buy the whole set at once. That means that you couldn't actually collect the set. I don't know what Nimrod thought that was a good idea, right? What was wrong with like dividing these up into packs of like 5 cards each? Why sell all 44 at once? It's stupid. One purchase got you all 44 cards and there ain't no more. The second problem is that the cards were literally pictures of older and better cards with really crappy backs. But the biggest problem of all is that these were all old players. The idea was to print 1 card for every MVP winner in each league between 1962 and 1981. Of course, there were 2 MVP winners in the 1979 National League, which meant 2 different cards. So that gets you to 41 cards, right? Then they printed 3 of these highlight cards to round out the set. At least this was printed straight, but there was another problem. The problem is that these were all cards for older players and for older seasons. Sure, some of these guys were still playing, but they were older players. Back in 1982, if you wanted to get a Roberto Clemente card, you would just buy an older Roberto Clemente card. This is the thing you've got to understand about the hobby. It's just as true today as it was back in the 1980s. People want cards of today's players in today's sets. Collectors are really not interested in like a 2026 set that celebrates Sandy Koufax's career, because we have like a million of those, right? Topps does that every year, or Mickey Mantle, or whoever else it is, right? This is all slop that comes out from Topps and now these days Fanatics, and it comes out every year and nobody ever talks about it. No, people want to speculate on like today's hot rookies or the really good young players. So if this 1982 Kmart set had focused on like Ripken and Henderson and Valenzuela, it would have been a lot more popular. And I know that for a fact because KB Toys did just that in 1986. In 1986, KB Toys came out with a set that was very similar to that Kmart set. The difference, of course, is that it featured young players, not a bunch of old and retired guys. These cards were attractive and actually looked like baseball cards. Imagine that, not just pictures of baseball cards. And as shocking as it might be, the backs were actual baseball card backs, not strange squares with off-center text. Of course, these cards are also generally worthless, but it's really not a bad set, and it looks a lot better than that 1982 Kmart set. And I know all about that KB Toys set. You know why? My parents got me one back then. I was 2 years old, and what did I do with the cards? I bent them up, I like ripped them apart, and I ate like half of them. But isn't that what baseball card collecting is all about? Anyway, most collectors don't think about the 1982 Kmart set just like how they don't think about the 1986 KB Toys set. But there is one big problem with that Kmart set. The problem is that they made way too many of these cards. You would not believe just how many of these boxes are out there, mostly unopened. This is one of the most massively printed sets of all time. And you really need to understand this before you decide to spend your money on this junk. Okay, so we gotta talk some economics here, right? The reason why this set was massively printed is because Topps and Kmart saw signs from the beginning of massive collector interest. This is actually a really good examination of the market dynamics that led to the junk wax era taking place in the first place. So this like rumor out there that these companies went crazy and they were stupid and why did they do this? They just printed and printed are not really true. What happened is that a lot of people decided to speculate their life savings on baseball cards. Because there were a lot of people buying, companies thought that demand was higher than it really was. The initial price of these was just under $2 for a box. However, word leaked out into the mainstream press about crazy errors in this set, errors that some speculators were willing to pay insane amounts of money for. So you'd see overprinted cards like this example. And usually the presence of a single error card in a box meant that every single card in the same box had a similar error. Some cards were missing ink, like in these examples I found on eBay. This example features 2 Frank Robinson cards. The one on the right has a completely blank back. And there were reports of stuff like wrong backs, upside down backs, and every conceivable error out there for these cards. The printing job here was really, really sloppy. I mean, we're talking like, AI chatbot level of slop, right? And anyway, because some collectors were paying ridiculous prices for the top slop, people started buying up this set like crazy, thinking that there was demand for the cards. In fact, a lot of card store owners and so-called hobby dealers started to buy up cases of this junk before it even hit Kmart stores. Topps responded to this by printing more cards to keep the Kmart stores in stock, and the result was the junk wax insanity. It's not all that common, but you can still find some of these boxes with the original $1.97 price tag. By May 1982, only about 4 months after the initial release, some stores were selling the set for $1.50 each, provided that you had this coupon. This classified ad from September 1982 would give you a full box for $1. And by late September, some baseball card shops would literally give you a box of this set for free if you made a purchase of $5 or more. In the end, even Kmart started giving these boxes away for free. All you had to do was walk into the store. It's much more common to find boxes of this junk with these kind of price tags on them, showing the ridiculously reduced prices as time went on. Contemporary reports indicate that Kmart started selling this garbage for 10 cents a box and still could not find enough buyers. And this is something you really need to keep in mind before you go blow $1,000 on a PSA 10 Maury Wills card. So for decades, card shops would just give boxes of this product away to you if you bought a certain amount of product. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this is how I wound up with these cards years ago without even expecting it or knowing it. I mean, the thing is that people couldn't even give this stuff away. You just need to stay away from the set no matter what. It's not worth it. Now, of course, the most interesting thing about this set is that it featured two cards that never really existed back in the old days. The Maury Wills and Fred Lynn cards are retrospective versions of the cards Topps would have issued if they had individual cards in those sets. Neither of these cards actually existed. But you still should be very careful before you spend even a dime on these cards. There are just too many of these out there. Anyway, we have to talk here about what we mean when we say junk wax. It's not just high print numbers. It's high print numbers combined with absolutely non-existent demand. And the feature of these junk wax sets is an abundance of errors, including errors that nobody really cares about. You see this all the time if you go on Facebook, on baseball card groups, and someone's like, oh look, there's a dot misprinting on this 1990 Donruss set or whatever. Like, nobody cares. Nobody's looking at this thinking, oh, I want that card. It's just slop and it's junk. A misprinted 1982 Kmart card or set of cards is worth absolutely nothing today. In fact, during COVID, you should have been using that as toilet paper because it was worth less than toilet paper. Nobody wants this set. It is fool's gold. It is a common trap for naive collectors. And unfortunately, a lot of the dynamics that led to that set still exist in the hobby today. Of course, Kmart didn't have the only junky set in 1982. The 1982 Fleer set was just as bad as the 1981 set. A lawsuit by Topps sought to prevent other companies from including bubblegum with the cards, and so Fleer went for team logo stickers instead. And in hindsight, this whole thing was totally silly, right? I mean, the thing is that bubblegum only hurts baseball cards. Most collectors by the late 1970s were not interested in the awful gum that Topps included with the cards. It went stale after 2 months or something, and even when it was fresh, it wasn't good. So by suing over the gum, Topps inadvertently paved the way for cards to be sold with no insert at all. That paved the way for Upper Deck and that fantastic Upper Deck set in 1989 and all of the changes that came to the hobby over time. Topps should never have sued over bubblegum in 1982. Anyway, the problem with 1982 Fleer is that the cards are ugly and out of focus. The backs are just as boring as the 1981 Fleer backs, though at least there are fewer blatant mistakes. Some of the photos were good ideas, but the picture quality is really bad. This Rickey Henderson card, for example, has got to be the ugliest Henderson card I've ever seen. And then you've got the ridiculous mistakes that Fleer made. But before we get to those, though, I do need to put in a brief plug. So if you like this content, if you want to see more of it, please consider a channel subscription. Or if you want more, check out my Patreon page. Your monetary support makes it possible for me to continue creating this content and hopefully to start ramping things up and to make even better videos than I am now. Now, I've got to tell you, the 1982 Fleer set was not as sloppy as the Kmart set, but man, it is up there. Fleer was smart and put out an individual card for Cal Ripken Jr., which is better than what Topps did. But Ripken was listed as a third baseman, even though he spent most of his season and most of the career at shortstop. And of course, his picture is just blurry. Then you've got cards like this Al Hrabosky, which also features a really blurry and out of focus photo. Some versions of the card list him as being 5 foot 1 inch tall, which is hilarious. And there's also a variation that has Al written on the back instead of his name Al. You can find a corrected version, but the truth is that nobody really cares these days. It's worthless. The whole set is worthless. Unopened boxes do cost a little bit, sure, it's because of idiot YouTubers like me who buy this stuff and then open it on camera and are like, whoop-de-doo, I got nothing again. But the thing is that nobody really wants this set. Fleer did not bother taking a step forward in 1982. It was basically the same set as 1981 Fleer, which was really bad. That would change, however, before long. Donruss, however, was a completely different story. Like Fleer, Donruss had to take away the gum, and so they stuck in a few puzzle pieces instead. You could get 3 puzzle pieces in a single pack, and once again, this strikes me as a much better idea than sticking in gum that can rot and deteriorate. The puzzle was a picture of Babe Ruth, and the pieces came together like this. If you complete it, the puzzle looks like this, something you probably could frame. And this was the beginning of Donruss featuring really nice artwork in its sets. With so much competition in the industry, every company needed something to make itself stand out. That might be why Topps was so dead set on getting the exclusive right to bubblegum with the cards, which is a decision that was stupid, right? Fleer apparently wanted to be known for really blurry photography and cards that were just not well designed. Donruss, however, devoted itself to quality. The first cards in the 1982 Donruss set were these so-called Diamond King cards. These were high-quality portraits of star players and really were very well done. But of course, they probably should have made the player swinging the bat actually look like Rod Carew. Sure, overprinting means that none of these cards are actually worth any money at all individually, but this attention to artistic quality was really a positive step for the industry as a whole. Donruss wound up developing a reputation for attention to detail, which was a key role in the golden age of Donruss in the mid-1980s. And, you know, I really, really wish the companies would do something like this again these days. You know, these days you have a lot of those like chrome cards, platinum cards, autograph cards, like serialized cards, 1 of 10, 1 of 5, 1 of 1. This card's a different color or whatever. Like, whatever, right? The truth is, though, that the vast majority of these cards are slop. Like, you look at it and it doesn't really mean anything, right? Usually when somebody has like a serial card, they're excited because it's like a 1 of 1. They're not really excited because the card looks good, right? The base sets in particular are really sloppy these days. The latest Topps set, which is the same for every stupid sport, looks just awful. I mean, it looks really, really bad. It looks like they used AI to make it. Even the special insert cards look lame and contrived. In my opinion, we need better photography and we need more art and modern baseball cards, especially in the base sets. Topps heritage should be the norm, not the exception. The design of the normal 1982 Donruss cards is good and the photography is nice. The backs are also clean and easy to read. There are some action shots, though they're not always in focus, like this Steve Carlton card. The Ripken card looks a lot better than the Fleer card, though he's still listed as a third baseman. The other key card in the set is the San Diego Chicken. The Chicken wasn't quite as controversial and notorious as he had been in 1974, but he was still a fan favorite. Anyway, all in all, this Donruss set was a classic. But of course, it was heavily printed, just like every other set from this era. The fact that the Ripken rookie cards are worth some money in top condition does not mean that this set is not junk wax. There's a ton of this stuff out there, right? You can find low condition sets for cheap if you look. It just doesn't always show up on auction sites. The reason why is because old collectors know that most people don't want like a poor condition binder full of 1982 Donruss. And then there was Topps. So Topps featured these facsimile autographs on the cards, which a lot of people like. The backs, however, were this puke green color, and they looked a lot less clean than the Donruss backs. Some people like the hockey stick design, and some people don't. Personally, this isn't really my favorite design, but 1982 Topps is the set that most people think of when they think of 1982 baseball cards. Just remember that there are a lot more of these cards out there than you think. This Cal Ripken Jr. rookie card was the key card in this set for decades. And I should note that even Topps called him a third baseman, and whatever happened to Bon Bonner? The Dave Stewart rookie card was also popular for years, mostly because of his success in the late 80s with Oakland. And the most notable Air card is this Pascual Perez card with no position listed on the front. But you know, Topps made a big mistake in 1982, just like it made in 1981 and would make throughout the rest of the decade, right? What was that mistake? Well, Topps decided to not make individual cards for certain rookie players. Instead, they left those cards to the Topps traded set. I guess the idea was that they wanted to hedge their bets. They wanted to wait to see if Ripken was any good before giving him his own card, right? It really hurt Topps in the market. The reason why is because you could buy a bajillion packs of 1982 Topps, but you would never get like the Ripken individual card. You had to buy a box of Topps traded to get that one. You see, the dream has always been to open up a pack like this with a Hall of Fame rookie, and it's an added bonus when the Hall of Famer is the top card of the cello pack. But you'll never find the top solo card of Ripken, no matter how many of these packs you end up going through. Instead, this iconic Ripken card was only in the Topps traded set and was not available in any packs. And as you can see here, the puke green was replaced by deep red, making the back completely impossible to read. Thanks, Topps. To get the Ripken, you had to buy a traded box and you got all 132 cards at once. Of course, the fact that you're guaranteed a Ripken rookie means that these boxes go for a lot these days, and it's really a gamble on what condition the card is in when you finally open the box. The other key card in the traded set is this Ozzie Smith Cardinals card, which actually looks pretty nice. But keep in mind that there are a lot more of these cards out there than you think. All in all though, despite my complaints, 1982 Topps actually was not a bad set. I don't really like the thick borders that much, but the autographs are really nice and the photography is actually really good. Topps was miles ahead of Fleer for sure. OPC came out with a set of 396 cards in the same Topps design. They're really easy to spot, just look for the French. OPC packs only cost $0.25 instead of the 30 cents we paid in the United States, but you also got fewer cards. And if you look closely, you can see through the wax to figure out who the back card is. Now, we've already talked about that ridiculously bad Kmart set, but there are a few other of these smaller and, I don't know, unusual baseball card sets from 1982 that I do want to talk about. Most people in the hobby either ignore these sets or don't even know that they exist. For example, Topps teamed up with Squirt to create panels of cards that were supposed to be sold with the soda. These were interesting alternatives to the official Topps cards and featured backs that look a lot nicer. These were designed to hang on to 6 packs of the soda with a perforated hanger hole up on top. However, most of these cards were purchased by collectors directly from the warehouses before they ever appeared in stores. Now, there's actually a really long history of selling baseball cards with soda, though the sets tend to be smaller and they don't command all that much attention. The most famous of these sets has got to be the 1958 Hires Root Beer set, and this is worth taking a few minutes to look at. This 66 card set was a nice alternative to Topps, which of course had its monopoly back in those days. The backs also specified that the cards could only be given away with purchases of the product, which makes the set feel a little bit more legitimate. Those 1958 Hires cards are more valuable if the bottom tab is attached, though most kids apparently went for the book and the membership card instead. Anyway, the Topps and Squirt relationship started in 1981, and these cards look a lot like the design of those old Hires Root Beer cards. Again, the only frustrating thing is that the majority of these cards never actually appeared in stores since dealers decided to buy up everything straight from wholesale. And this is, of course, another sign that we were already in the junk wax era. Everybody wanted to speculate, but only speculate on the cards. A lot of people tried to keep everything in like factory condition for as long as possible. Now, I think that it's normal to have like a card you want to keep looking really nice. You want to keep it looking like it's still new. That makes sense to me. But having like the soda can hanging advertisement look as good as new is really, really weird. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys think differently, but for me, I don't know what you're doing, bro. Eventually, the company started to realize that collectors only wanted the cards and really didn't care about the gum or the soda or the Cracker Jacks or the cookies or whatever. Drake's also made cards in 1982 in connection with Topps. There had been a 1981 Drake set as well, though most of those cards were sold directly to dealers as complete sets, bypassing the cakes. But most people didn't pay much attention to this set at all. Kellogg's also had another 3D card set in 1982 that kept up a tradition that went back years. Again, you can find whole boxes featuring these old ads if you really want them. The boxes didn't contain cards in 1982. Instead, you had to send in 2 proof of purchase labels and $4 to get the full set. And the cards are kind of underwhelming. And 1982 also saw the return of an iconic company from the early days of baseball card collecting. We're talking the really early days, though this set was a big disappointment. Now, you would think the 1982 Cracker Jack would be an all-time classic set. Unfortunately, Topps and Cracker Jack only made cards for retired players. The other unfortunate thing is that the card design is boring and it really sucks. Seriously, why couldn't they make cards that looked like the old 1915 Cracker Jack design? This was an all-time classic set, and Topps really dropped the ball by not going for this style. Anyway, the 1982 Cracker Jack set came as uncut sheets, one for the American League and one for the National League. If you ordered them from the company, chances were really good that your sheet was going to get damaged in shipping. The smart choice back then was to buy uncut sheets from card shops, which were able to buy them in bulk from the company. Anyway, the cards are what they are, and this was a real missed opportunity, at least in my opinion. Well, there you have it for the 1982 baseball cards. Now, I do want to be clear. This absolutely is the junk wax era, right? Fight me in real life, bro. Anyway, these cards are overprinted. Speculation on baseball cards back in 1982 was rampant, especially for new sets. Now, the fact that you like some of the Topps cards, the fact that the Ripken card might be worth 4 figures in PSA 10 condition does not mean that this is not junk wax. This is junk wax. This is absolutely junk wax. And whatever you do, stay far, far away from those 1982 Kmart cards. Trust me.